at the Wargaming table, Troops in Contact, or TIC, Experimentation. So while this is experimentation, it's also a bit of a design review, and I'm asking myself a question: where am I at in the whole design approach? So let's talk about sequence of play first. In more ways than one, really the core or heart of certainly a small unit combat action simulation game design. Okay, from the beginning, who goes first? So it's the start of play. I continue to think about this, think about different ways of doing this, and I still come back to I'm okay with, it's not the best, but I'm okay with there being a situation attacker and a situation defender. And the situation attacker will begin play, will go first. Okay, so in this situation, blue 4 is the attacker, red 4 is the situation defender. So starting with blue 4. The blue 4 player, okay, so units will conduct actions. The beginning action will, of course, be simple movement, but later there will be other possible actions, including observing for fire. Yeah, observing for fire, plotting fire, setting demolitions, etc. But we'll start with movement as the basic action. Units conduct actions, so, and I've thought about this, activation. Yes. I can't think of anything better. So units conduct actions. To act, a unit must be activated. So the player may activate one or more units stacked together. And I think that terminology covers all the different situations I'm thinking of, okay? But the player activates one or more units stacked together. Okay, so let's start with the most basic and say that the blue 4 player is going to activate the top fire team here. So he's going to activate the top fire team here, and he's going to begin acting with it. And okay, so, and I wonder if I'll ever get a better way to do this, but I'm still going with 3 postures: up posture, down posture, and down full cover. And down full cover is both a forced posture and a posture that can be chosen by the player. Okay, so the fire team here, the player rotates the unit to the up posture and says 0, because moving from down posture to up posture, at least for dismounted units, doesn't cost an action point. So I'm still going, the units have 4 action points. 4 action points, okay. Changing posture is 0 action points. Now, is that an action? Seems to me that it is an action. So later on, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say the unit performs an action, but some actions cost 0 action points. Maybe that's the way I'm going to have to put it. All right, we'll get to that later when it gets to how the opposing side can react to that, to any action. But in this case, there was an action. The fire team changed posture, but it's still 0 action points. Now, then the blue 4 player moves the unit into the clear, well, no, not clear, open terrain, and says 1. Says 1. Yeah, and the player has to say 1 because you're choosing rate of movement. So let's say that they move at normal speed into the open, 1. Now, here's where it gets, normally you would think that he would go 2, 3, 2 for the woods. Yes, he may do that. Okay, this is where, let me back up, I guess, a moment and say this is exactly the situation that I watched a player record on video the other day, recently. So this is exactly the action that I watched recorded on video the other day, and the player went 1, 2, 3, which is that not ubiquitous in games at this scale or not? Now, that reminded me that I wanted to talk to myself again about this. Terrain needs to be defined by both cover, concealment, and basically difficulty to negotiate. So let's pretend that these are average Central European woods, meaning they definitely provide some cover. They definitely provide some concealment, but they're not difficult to traverse, meaning there is no significant amount of underbrush to speak of. Branches are not so thick and starting so low to the ground that units have to crawl through this woods, okay? This is normal Central European woods, providing cover concealment, but not difficult to traverse. So I think I talked before. I guess I'll start over again. I think when war games say 1, 2, 3, and the unit spends 2 movement points for the woods, I believe that goes way back to the kind of the simplification of the unit would be moving in a formation, most likely, and to maintain the formation and to maintain situational awareness and maintain unit integrity, unit organization, unit cohesion, all these different concepts, for the unit to maintain basically the best possible order for the formation terrain, for the formation chosen and the terrain covered. The formation would move faster in the open, clear, and slow down its movement through the woods. It would slow down its movement. Again, the idea, I think, is to maintain, again, the formation, etc., etc., etc. Maintain fields of fire, maintain visual contact, etc., etc. So basically, decisions by the squad leader to the team leaders, well, in this case, it's a team leader to the members of the team, decisions like that are made by the rules. I want to get away from all this, so just scrap all that. And here the concept is this unit, so to start over, this unit can move 2 hexes. This unit can move 2 hexes, and that the unit can do that in many different kinds of ways. In many different ways. The unit can do this in many different ways. Basically, the unit can move slowly and maintain its full cohesion. So that would be 1, 2, 3, normal. What I'm saying is if the player goes 1, 2, that means that the unit moved what I'm going to call normal, but normal might be misleading. It moved normally into the clear, open, and maintained a faster rate relative to, again, what the woods would dictate. So basically, it maintained its rate of movement, right, by spending 1 action point and 2 action points. 1 action point and another action point for 2. So this is where, and this is something that I'm thinking through right now, and I still don't have the details, but it'll probably be a table where basically, well, it's rate of movement, right? So it's distance relative to time. Is that right? Yeah. But the idea is if the unit, and I'll go to another example that might be more obvious, but the unit moved normally in the open and then moved quicker than the terrain. Yeah, I know the wording keeps implying things I don't want to imply, but the unit continued to move at the same rate that was good for the open while they were in the woods, which means that the unit lost a little bit, which is what I'm saying. Yes, this is a design decision. The unit is going to lose a little bit in this case, because I'm defining the woods as a certain kind of Central European woods. We'll say that they're going to lose lose 10% again of their internal cohesion, order, whatever term you want to use. Actually, I've decided the term I want to use. It's going to be readiness. So the unit's going to lose 10% of its readiness. And how that's going to work is it's going to be marked on top with some marker denoting 10% loss of readiness. And that's exactly what, well, actually I'm not sure there is an exact term, but that's the best term I can come up with. It means that see, if the unit had spent 2 action points to move into the woods, it would have maintained its full unit cohesion, in which case it would have maintained 100% readiness as per, and this being the definition of, let's say, normal. Whereas if they maintained their movement as if so basically they're moving through the woods as if it were open, which is why I'm saying, which is why I'm hoping it'll now become clear, they are losing, again, a certain percent of their, fields of fire are now less clear, less easy to maintain. Visual contact, think of it as visual contact is now being interrupted. As the soldiers pass, around trunks, around branches, etc., 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 they're losing just a little bit, in this case, just a little bit of their, again, they're in what I'm calling it is readiness. I think that's the best term, because it means specifically the unit's readiness to do anything, to do something as a unit. It doesn't mean that the individuals lose any individual capability. So presumably a rifleman is still as capable as anything, as an individual, but individuals don't matter here. It is still the unit. And so the team has lost a little bit of its readiness, and we're going to say it's 10%. That marker is going to go on top because these readiness loss markers should easily come off. There shouldn't, well, at least in this case, at least for movement, at least for friendly voluntary movement. Yeah. So the idea is, well, there are several key ideas here, but the idea that I thought of recently is, and actually I thought of this within the last 24 hours, I don't want, and I know players say you're only one leader, which I've already discarded. In this simulation game, you're not one leader. You're every leader. Okay, so you have to think of, you're the Deus Ex Machina of the force as a whole. You're making every decision because this is a study of what the best decisions are. This isn't a reenactment, but this is a study of tactical decision making. Okay, so the idea is the rules are not going to force you to make the quote unquote right decision. You're going to choose among many different options so that you can study what the best, decisions are. Let's say he moved, let's move him over here. Okay. So the rules are going to allow you, the concept is, I want the player, if the player so wishes, he can take his force and he can do an Olympic dash across the entire battlefield. And the rules are not going to prohibit that, but the rules are going to show you what happens as a result of that. So again, this is what I want. I want, if the player wants to move quickly from here, let's say up to here. Let's say up to here. No, let's say up to here. So I want the player to be able to, so go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And in the process, and by the way, these would definitely not be cumulative. So to not make this silly, well, in one sense silly, it's going to be 1, fine, 2, then in principle you lose that cohesion, right? When you move into the open again, you don't have to, as of right now, I don't see having to pay an entire action point just to regain, again, your internal cohesion, your readiness, to regain your lost readiness. That just doesn't make sense. The soldiers come out of the wood line. They have, 25 meters to traverse. As they're moving, they're regaining their situational awareness, their cohesion, their readiness. And so, again, it comes off. You don't have to do this every time, but when you go into here and you're moving not any slower, you would again get the, what I'm getting at is, let's say the units here, if they go 1, 2, 3, 4, they moved through 4 woods there. It's important that these are not cumulative. That's what I think is going to get silly. So they lose some readiness, but they don't keep losing readiness. It would be the same kind of, be the same effect. Okay, I hope that works anyways. We'll see if it works. Okay, so then they would wind up at the end there, and they would have that lost readiness. Now, that's terrain. And some terrain will simply be difficult to go through. If we're talking really, really thick woods, that's different. There will be an actual, movement degradation because of terrain that has to be negotiated. Okay, but I just wanted to talk about this. The player opting to sacrifice some internal readiness, unit readiness, to move quicker than maybe you should, quote unquote, but don't want to dictate what should be, right? Okay, clearly that was very long-winded, but here's the result I want. If the unit expends its 4th action point in this hex, and they have a readiness loss marker like that, and now they are observed by the enemy here. This is exactly what I want to show. I want to show that as the 4 soldiers walked from this 25-meter hex into this 25-meter hex, they were still moving too quick to maintain 100% unit readiness. And so when they're fired on, there will be some kind of penalty. Not that it would be drastic in this case, but they are to some degree easier targets as they walk through the wood line. They become visible between the tree trunks and branches and everything. Now, of course, the thing to do is to move quickly 1, 2, and let's say 3. So yes, they did lose some readiness there. They regained it there, and then so 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, that's what I want. They don't have enough to get there, but I know what. I know what. If you, okay, so if you wanted to, so if the, and this is what I want, if the player wants to move the unit from here to here, 1 as quickly as possible and 2 as safely as possible relative to this last hex. I'll talk about in transit in a minute. Or I mean to talk about it anyways. Hopefully I remember. Okay. So here, you're going to go 1/2. That means that they are moving quicker than normal. And again, I've started the computations of average, running speeds to terrain, blah, blah, blah. So it will be there will be at least in my mind, there will be I think that's a moderate jog, but they're moderately jogging through the clear. As a matter of fact, and then we say if you go, so 1/2, if you go 1/2 again, like that, let's say you do that, 1/2, and then you go 1. Yeah, 1/2 and then 1. So you're telling the opponent that they are still a light run or light jog into the wood line there. Let's just say, for example, and this is completely off the top of my head, you're going to lose 20% readiness like that. So that's 1, and then you go, and let's just say you go 2. Now the fact that you slowed down to a normal movement, I'm thinking off the top of my head, you're going to regain your readiness again. So that's going to come off. So it's 1/2, 1, 2. Now you have 2 action points left to move into the woods. And here's where if you go 3, 4, right? So 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you slowed down and you moved at a more cautious rate into, see here because you paid 2 to enter the woods, you didn't get any readiness loss. So on the one hand, you are in up posture, but on the other hand, you're in the woods for cover and concealment, and you didn't lose any readiness in the process. And so now maybe, you have this situation where the opponent is going to have a less easy shot versus the first example. Now, there's a third example. Like I said, there are going to be lots of opportunities. Now, I will say you're actually going to have even faster rate of movement. So you're going to go 1/3, and let's just say 2/3. Now, at some point, you're not going to be able to run through woods. But that, again, I'm still thinking Central European woods without any measurable underbrush. So I'm saying you can run through these woods. But here, let's just say, again, this is just off the top of my head, let's say you lose, let's say you lose 30% readiness. So 1/3, 2/3, and let's just say you go 1. So now you're still running 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, or 1, right? One. Yeah, let's just say, I'm thinking off the top of my head, and then you're going to spend 2, that is spending 1. You're going to say 2 by spending 1 action point. Yeah, that's what it is. You're going to say 2 to spend 1 action point to go to down posture in the clear there. Then you're going to spend 2, you're going to say 2, which again is going to be a particular type of crawling, not always literally crawling, but let's just say crawling. Well, it's moving in down posture is what it is. And then you're going to say 3, 4. And actually, the way I see it, I think you're going to lose a little bit. You're going to lose a certain amount of readiness for that as well. Okay. But now you're in an even better situation than you were in the last case, because now you're in the woods, you're in down posture, and you've only lost a little bit of readiness, but probably still better than the last case where you were in up posture, and in the woods. So actually I am talking through, this is everything that I want. Now, the question is, well, wait a minute, why wouldn't, doing it this way, why wouldn't players always, why wouldn't players always choose the perfect movement pattern, right? So why wouldn't they always run at full speed and then slow down to the slowest possible speed and only, expose themselves in the best possible defensive posture? Well, the first thing is, why would any unit, why would real soldiers not do that? The one thing I'm thinking about this, and there may be others, the one thing is that indirect fire. Yeah, indirect fire. So when you go up and you run here, I think that if the opponent has indirect fire possible to land during this, we'll say action, we'll say if the opponent has indirect fire that possibly could land this action period, then the player can roll for the possibility of the indirect fire, basically landing and getting these guys in the open. So I guess let me put it this way. It's not that it's like a, okay, let me explain this. Red 4 let's just say Red 4 should want to have a pre-plotted target like here. No, well, yeah, no. Let's just say that. Well, let's say that. Oh yeah. This would not be on the board. So I'm saying that there's a target there, but the target's written off board on scratch paper, on a fire, on a target list worksheet. And so what I'm saying is you're going to plot this fire for some time period that you want it to land. And so then when the enemy unit runs into the target, then the opposing player can say, interruption, which, by the way, at this point you would mark the unit. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if you would even, I wonder how I could clarify this, but let's just say that they would have that readiness penalty on them at that time. Wow, that wouldn't even really matter for indirect fire, actually. Indirect fire is different, I think. Okay. So Red 4 player would interrupt. The unit would be marked for whatever action period it is, to show boom, boom, and then Red player would roll for the rounds landing at this time, basically in this 15-second span of time. And that, of course, I've talked about artillery before. Artillery can be shockingly ineffective in certain circumstances, but to be hit with artillery in the open like this is going to be pretty devastating, most likely. So is it a chance the player will take? Well, it's a chance I want to let the player take that chance, but might be pretty irresponsible play. Okay. Now the other thing is, and I'll just say this right now, if the opposing side, well, let me put it this way, if the opposing side has no indirect fire, then you have no indirect fire. I mean, you can't make up the effects of indirect fire without having indirect fire capability. So on the one hand, maybe every situation begins with a certain percentage chance of having some form of indirect fire. Actually, that is probably one way to do it. When you go out on mission, when you're entering this situation, you don't know for sure. I'm saying the obvious. You simply don't know. And maybe that's the way it should be. So maybe it should be a percentage chance everywhere from a 3% chance of having indirect fire all the way up to a 98% chance of having indirect fire assets. And then you would reveal that the first time you want to use it. So then you really wouldn't know. See, here's the concept, what I'm getting at. Blue 4, red 4. If red 4 knew, which is of course what we never have in real life, but if if blue 4 knew red 4 did not have indirect fire assets, period. And if blue 4 knew exactly where red 4 was, as we can see here, then obviously there would be nothing to stop blue 4 from getting up, dashing all the way up to near the front line, and then slowly moving into the front line in the best defensive posture. That's exactly what the soldiers would do. Of course, in real life, we never have these certainties. So the one thing is the indirect fire, and two, the second thing I think is going to be I mean, if I were, and I really haven't even thought about this. I'm thinking off the top of my head. So I wonder if it could be as simple as you want to run through the clear here like this. I mean, maybe red 4 player can interrupt. Maybe red 4 player interrupts and then, so maybe, I think off the top of my head, so maybe red player interrupts blue player, and let's pretend that there's no visibility here. Let's say let's consider just these forces here. Maybe red 4 player interrupts blue 4 player there. And let's just say that blue 4 player has spent, well, let's say he spent 1 action point at this point. Let's just say that. Let's just say this is a 1 action point marker. Okay, action period marker. A +1 action period marker. Maybe red 4 player interrupts and can react with a unit, and says, I want to attempt to react with this unit. And red 4 player rolls against that unit's capabilities. And if the unit succeeds, well, yeah, let's walk this through. That unit spent 1 action point to get there. And let's say this red 4 unit successfully passes some type of proficiency check. Let's say it now gets to react. It'd be interesting to say if it can react with the same amount of action points, or does it get to react? Would it be able to react with more? Let's just say, let's start with saying that it reacts with the same number of action points. No, that makes sense, I think. As much as anything on a paper map makes sense. So let's say 1, he gets to react, he goes 1/3, 2/3, 1. And then he fires at the unit between the wood lines here. And the firing doesn't cost anything. So that might be one way to deal with this, to keep players from doing this without any, without any inhibition. All right, that was completely off top of my head. I wasn't really concerned with going over that at this time for this session, but what I want to get over is there will be readiness costs for moving through terrain at a certain speed. Actually, it's not just terrain. Oh, I just realized it's not just terrain. A unit, which by the way, I think my last computations, oops, it went off here. So I think my last computations had it going all the way up to 4 times the quote-unquote normal rate of movement. This is a 4 times normal rate of movement is a true run, and I mean a run, average run. So my point is, if you go 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 2, you just ran, whatever, 200 meters. And so at the instant that we're looking at that unit, having just run into this hex, it would be whatever it would have a steep readiness loss inflicted on it. In other words, when these 4 soldiers are running at full speed, here, they're not maintaining any formation. They're not maintaining any internal cohesion. It's 4 individuals running as fast as they can, basically, with all their gear and stuff. So there would be whatever hefty penalty there would be, which actually just made me think that these should not automatically come off. If this unit ran 200 meters up the little bit of rise here, for that unit to regain its full readiness, actually I think that probably would be expending a action point, possibly. Haven't thought that through. Anyways, so that's that. So here, more importantly, I guess I'll save this for the next video.